So I want to talk about Donald Trump's recent UN speech, what happened, and also why it matters. So a few days back, President Trump basically took the UN podium and he did something that was a little bit unpredictable and also very dangerous at the same time. He basically turned a forum for global diplomacy into almost a campaign rally. And it has to be said, I think it was a great thing that he did. The headlines behind all of this, they largely exaggerated everything as usual. But his speech was a full-throated attack on global institutions. It was an attack on stupid policies created by, I'm going to say, impotent governments that are just inactive. They don't deal with problems. And as much as people may love Trump or loathe him, at the end of the day, promises are made and promises are delivered upon. And that's something that very few politicians, really in any government, can put to their name. He has and is doing what he said he set out to do, especially regarding immigration. And to be fair, if you watch the speech, it was about 10 or 15 minutes. He absolutely takes it to Germany, to Austria. He takes it to the UK in big style, and also, quite rightly, to Sadiq Khan, our London mayor. So it was basically an attack on all of the institutions that are inactive and not performing, not working for the people. He basically blames the decline for the West largely on open borders and obviously on green energy. And I think he's absolutely right. And what he called the globalist agenda. So here's the blunt truth that you're not going to get from a press junket. Basically, the speech that he delivered, it served two purposes. First of all, it was domestic. It was a message to his base of fans, his voters, and basically to say to these people that he's still the man who will put national sovereignty above all else. He's still the man who's got the balls to stand up and to jeer at global elites. He doesn't give a shit what they say or what they think of him. He tells it like it is. And he's the man who's going to promise protection from cultural and economic changes that regular people, you, me, everybody else, feel absolutely powerless to stop because our governments don't listen to us. And secondly, it was strategic, and that was intentional. Basically, it was a signal to allies and to adversaries alike that US policy under him is transactional. It's blunt, it's unapologetic, it's nationalistic, and it's a power play. And I think that was a great thing. Politically, basically all of this matters. So you can argue about the semantics of what he said, about rhetoric that was involved. But when the US president publicly ridicules climate efforts and then demands closed borders on an international stage, world leaders don't just shrug. They have to recalibrate. They have to listen. And in fact, he did get a rousing applause and from some a standing ovation at the end. Governments that rely on predictable American support, they suddenly face uncertainty. There are now trade talks, there are tariffs, there are security guarantees, diplomatic coalitions. All of these things suddenly now come into play. They all now become more brittle when the US frames the debate as my country first, your country second. And to be fair, and from somebody that's not even that political, I see that that is the way it should be. Every country should look after their own citizens first. The money that they've got, the infrastructure they've got, any public services they've got should be there for the benefit of the people that were born in that country first. Now, I know opinion's going to be massively divided on this. Everybody's got one, and this is mine, and that's absolutely fine. You're absolutely free to disagree. But tactically, Now, this changes everything moving forward. Basically, you can expect a few different outcomes from this. One of them is that it's going to harden the domestic competition that prizes culture war, that over anything else. It's basically a messy compromise if we bend to it. Number two, it feeds populist leaders elsewhere who are already itching to push similar agendas, and maybe just didn't have the balls to bring it out on such a public platform. Now they probably will. And three, it forces the UN and multilateral partners into a choice. They can either loudly rebuke and risk escalation, and let's face it, Trump isn't going to back down, or they can do what they're likely going to do, and that's just to absorb the criticism, learn from it, work with it, and then try to work around it. Both choices, regardless, are going to now change forever how global problems, from climate change to conflict, actually get handled. This wasn't just an address, it was a preview of how a more, I guess, confrontational US foreign policy looks in practice. And also, it was a wake up call to other failing governments, UK included, around the world, whose people aren't being listened to. You'll see it in the comments on many videos that people are wishing that we had Trump as our president. Obviously, that's not possible. We're not going to suddenly become a 51st state. But it has to be said, as somebody that isn't very political, I don't go out of my way to put my own views out there about politics, left or right, because they're just my views. And I know in the grand scheme of things, everybody's got slightly different opinions. Everybody's got a slightly different take. And mine is that we should deal with our own problems first. And I was really impressed with the fact that Trump had the balls to come out and say what he said in front of world leaders. And the fact that many of them applauded, most of them applauded him afterwards. I think secretly they all feel the same. I think secretly we all know what the problems are. And I think also secretly our government and many others are just trying to bury their heads in the sands, ride out the end of their term, and just hope that it sorts itself out. It's never going to do that. It needs affirmative action. It needs somebody to take control. And I think we need to get rid of our London mayor, definitely. I think Ant Middleton is most likely the best man for the job. Despite his past, I think that he has got the wherewithal to do what needs to be done to get the capital back on track. And let's face it, London farts and the rest of the country kind of smells it. So the changes that happen in London usually then filter down to the suburbs and then out to everywhere else, a few months or a few years after. So it's important that London is fixed. It really is. And I don't see that happening with Sadiq Khan as the mayor. It's not for reasons of ethnicity or ideology or anything else. I just think he's a particularly shit mayor. And that's the long and short of it. And I think Ant Middleton is probably the best guy for the job. And I also think in terms, once London's sorted, I think then we can look for a change in government. And I think that will help. Because at the end of the day, you don't want a London mayor that's in the Prime Minister's back pocket. You don't want them to be squash buddies or polo buddies, because it means that one person can influence the decisions and policy making of the other, and that's not the way it should be. Politics should be for the people. It shouldn't be for the agenda of the people in charge. And I think Ant Middleton, he comes across as someone that would be very much for the best interest of the people of London and the UK as a wider whole. So look, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on Donald Trump's speech? Did you think it was fabulous? Did you think it was just Trump playing up to the cameras and being Trump? Drop it in the comments, let me know. Now look, I appreciate everybody's got a different opinion politically. We're all going to have slightly different views. It doesn't mean that mine are right. It doesn't mean that yours are wrong. They are what they are. And I think We all have a right to have our voices heard, and we all have a right to have our voices considered. So look, drop it in the comments, let me know. Like, follow, subscribe, ring the bell, all that jazz, and there'll be another video tomorrow. Goldman, peace out.